Will it turn off if it's recording?
I think you can switch it off.
Okay.
How many more?
No, we're eating, so you can sit to the table then.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Or do we need some more?
Finding a spot to sit. She's going, can you come in here? She's going there now.
Will flow nicely, and I just want to once again thank my mother for allowing me to host this in the sukkah, in her sukkah at her home. This is the third year doing this, and what is this specifically? Is inviting Jews and non-Jews together into my sukkah, or our sukkah, our family sukkah. And I think I had the idea about 3 years ago, and I'll share where it stemmed from, but what's the basis of this and why do this? And what is the significance of a sukkah? Something that we hopefully will talk about. And let's see how this flows, how it unpacks, etc. And I don't really know how long I'm going to speak for, so let's see. You'll tell me when you've had enough. Okay, so the whole basis of this idea that I really believe that Sukkot is an international festival, right? It's an international festival of all of the Chagim. It's not exclusively about the Jewish people. It's about all of humanity. And where do I see this? Where do we see this? Is that in the sacrifices of Sukkot, each day there is a diminishing amount of cows. So the cows are brought in one of the sacrifices. And each day for the 7 days of Sukkot is a diminishing amount of cows. And Rashi explains, Parei HaChag Shivim Haim. The total number of cows that are brought as sacrifices in the temple of this festival of Sukkot are 70. And each day they're going less. 13, and the next day 12, and the next day 11. And it goes down and down. And he says, Keneged Shivim Umot. This corresponds to the 70 nations, Shemitma'atim v'holchim, that are consistently getting less. Siman klaya lahem, it is a sign of diminishing for them. And what was the point of this? Ubiyimei HaMikdash, in the time of the temple, hayu maginim aleim min hayusurim. These cows that were brought to sacrifices corresponding to the nations of the world would protect them from suffering. So we were bringing in the sacrifices in the temple, cows, to protect the nations of the world, the 70 nations of the world. And what does it mean, this siman klaya lahem, that this is an omen or a sign of diminishing for them? And I think this is really the important point that needs to be understood, is that it doesn't mean that in the end of days, the only people on earth are going to be Jews. But what it means is that there isn't going to be necessarily 70 different nations. We'll become one people, one humanity that is all united in one recognition of God. And I think that is we're seeing that, the globalization of the world, and it's a constant thing that's happening. But it's that the influence of the Torah of God on all of humanity through the Jewish people, but of all of humanity, is manifesting already. Okay. The number 70, where do we see that there's 70 nations? This is brought down in Genesis, the sons of Noach, that his children are broken down into 70 forebearers of the future nations throughout the world, or throughout the known world there, starting in Middle East, Southern Europe, Northern Africa, Western Asia, and then spreading forth from there. But the number 70 is also very significant in that the number 70 comes up in the context of a court, okay, the high court, the Sanhedrin Gedola, the high court in Jerusalem was made up of 70 members, 70 elders. And God says to Moses, he says, gather for me 70 elders. And they become the high court of the Jewish people. And the high court was right next to the temple. That's where it was located. It was located next to the temple because justice and service of God go together. They're one in the same. They're connected. And I want to just speak about the high court for a bit. There's a concept in the Torah which is called nullification, bittul. It's applied in various scenarios. Like if you have non-kosher food and it falls into a pot of kosher food, can you eat the pot? Well, it depends how much there was. If it was this minuscule amount, well, then it can be nullified. The whole source of nullification, that a minority can be nullified in the majority, is learned out from the High Court. Because the High Court, which was made up of 70 elders plus Moses on top of him, because you can't have a court that's an even number because you have to be able to have a vote. They would take a vote on any matter of national or individual. I mean, the court system is, the High Court is 71, then the next size court, which would deal with capital cases, is 23, and then you can have a court of monetary cases of 3 judges, 3 or 5 in various scenarios. But it always has to be an odd number because if you have to take a vote, you need to have a deciding vote. And the principle is that if you have 71 judges on this High Court, and 36 vote one way, and 35 vote another way, well then the 35 are nullified against the 36. And it becomes a unanimous decision of the court, the ruling in accordance with the 36. And this is the principle called Achrei Rabim Lahatot, that you follow the majority, and that the minority view, the minority taste in the case of food is nullified in the majority. It's as if it doesn't exist. It's as if it's not there. And the principle really is that this is the fundamental principle of democracy as well, is that you have a majority that votes in favor of whatever they want to lead, whoever they want to lead, and that becomes the leading party for the masses. Right? The minority, or whoever they are, need to follow the majority. You're stuck with it. It's regardless, doesn't matter. But the principle of democracy, of following the majority, is ingrained in the Torah. And even more so, it's ingrained in the sense of the leadership of the Torah. And I want to just share an idea. After the Jewish people sin at the golden calf, Hashem says to Moses, when they've sinned, he's on the mountain and they've sinned with the golden calf. Hashem says to Moses, Lech red, go down, ki shiches amcha, because your nation has become corrupt. They've strayed. They've gone off. What does he mean, go down? Does it go down the mountain, or perhaps something else? And Rashi, based on the Gemara, says, Reid migdulatcha, go down from your greatness. You go down. Lo natati lecha gedula ele bishvilam. I've only given you greatness for them. And if they have messed up, well, then there's no point in having you around. Go down from this low level, because you are supposed to be representative of them. And there's an interesting way that a rabbi is referred to, and that is Rov. Now, Rov, you may have heard this or not, but where does that come from? Because in the Talmud or in the rabbinic teachings, a rabbi is in Hebrew Rav or Rebbe. Where does Rov come from? And I'd like to suggest that Rov comes from this exact same principle, is that Rov is majority. Bitul barov is nullification in the majority. The Rov is supposed to be and is symbolic or representative of the majority of his people. If he isn't, well then he's not the Rov. He's just not, because he either is representative of them or he's not. So he's not the Rov, because the Rov is the majority. He has to be representative. There's another Gemara in Sota which speaks about how in the times just before Moshiach comes, it says that Pnei Hador Kepnei HaKelev. The face of the generation is like the face of a dog. And it's often understood in a very derogatory sense to say the leadership will be like a dog. And what does that mean, like a dog? That when you see a dog taking its owner for a walk, the dog kind of takes the owner for the walk. it runs ahead and looks back to see if the owner is following. And the same principle is true in the times of Moshiach. The face of the generation, the leadership, will be like that of a dog. Well, always looking back to see if your followers are still there. But this isn't derogatory. This is what it's meant to be. Because in the times of Moshiach, in the times of Messianic times where we're heading, we won't have a king in the sense that we had in the past. Moshiach, the leader that essentially all faiths are waiting for, right? Whether it's the Moshiach, the Messiah of the Jewish religion or of Christianity or of Islam, whatever it is a leader that's going to come in the end of days, and he is going to be democratically voted. And that's something which it seems obvious, but it's not, because you think, well, maybe he just comes and he shows up and everybody accepts him as the Messiah, as the leader. But I think we all know in our hearts that if anybody were to arrive from anywhere and claim to be the Messiah, we'd probably lock him up in some mental asylum. We're not going to suddenly embrace him. And even the most successful leaders haven't convinced everybody. The only way to have this Messiah, this end of days unfolding, is through democracy, which is why democracy is so important, which is why the vote of every individual is so important, to be able to express his opinion, his feeling or hers, and that the leader that comes into power is representative of the majority. Right? And this is something here in South Africa which we understand deeply, more than 30 years on now. The importance of democracy, of voting. But I think it's not appreciated enough by everybody. And that is, I think, the primary message of Sukkot that I would like to share, is that every democratic country needs to have a robust democratic sense and presence and attitude towards elections. And we're falling short in South Africa. And in many places in the world, but definitely in South Africa. Because in terms of the number of registered voters and how many people actually vote, we only have, I think, about just over 60% of the registered voters that actually voted in the last election. And not everyone is registered to vote, that could be registered to vote. So hence we have an apathetic government that are representative of an apathetic people. Not only in South Africa, this is everywhere in the world, or in many places in the world, but that is the principle. Your leadership represents you. Who you put into power is the results that you're going to see on the ground. And who you don't put into power, or who you put into power because of your lack of involvement and investment in what you're doing, is going to result in the exact same thing. That was the one message I wanted to share. Another message or idea, really, that this gathering was deeply about, because it is messianic. We're in messianic times. We're coming to the end of days. If we look at the Jewish timeline of the history of time, which is 6,000 years, we're now in the year 5786, which means that there's 214 years to go. 214 years. An interesting idea that one of the commentaries on the Torah explains is that we believe in a principle called the resurrection of the dead. In the end of days, there'll be a tchiat hametim, a resurrection of the dead. How that will look is not the topic for this discussion. I'm not even sure if I know, but I have an opinion. But Rabbeinu Bachaya says that resurrection will take place 206 years after Moshiach, Messiah, comes. But it will be before the year 6000. So we've got 214 years to go to the year 6000. And 206 years before that, Moshiach will come.
It's less.
So we're in this time zone. But what we have to wake up and realize is that we bring it. We bring it. When we take ownership of our lives, our space, we bring that. We bring that to the fore. Which is why I feel so strongly about democracy and not being apathetic about it. Because we need to bring that reality into being. We need to take the vote seriously. We need to educate the whole of South Africa and all places in the world about the importance of voting. And I think to stress this even more so, South Africa plays a vital role, an understated role on a global scale. Maybe it's appreciated. I don't know. We're from South Africa, so I don't know how much it's appreciated outside of South Africa, but we play a very, very vital role in terms of setting the standard. And when South Africa took Israel to the ICJ, it was a very bold statement. And I'm not in support of it or against it. It was what it was. But if you look at the reaction from most people about that move, was clean up your own country before you comment on ours. That was the reaction of anyone outside of South Africa, other than the people that wanted to hop on that bandwagon, right? At least from Israel, that was the reaction. From the Jewish people worldwide, that was the reaction. Clean up your own country before you comment on what we're doing over here. Again, whether or not the move was right or wrong, it was from God. It's not our doing it. God inspired the people to do that. It is what it is. But we need to clean up our backyard and show the world really what it means to be South African. To live the vision that Mandela had for this country. We are a rainbow nation. We are. We're the most incredible people, I think, in the world. And we as a South African people can show Israel, please God, how to live peacefully with its neighbors But only if and when we come right at home. And it's very easy to come right at home. We need to make democracy and voting the most important thing. In every child that comes of age, which is mine, in every adult, to not feel like I don't make a difference, because your voice makes a difference. It makes a difference in such a bold way, in such a profound way, that you have no idea. Because when you express your view, well, then the leadership might just represent your view. Maybe, if you do. Touching on Messianic times as well. This is a gathering of various members of the Lemba community. Moshabi, am I correct? The question of the Lemba, and I've engaged with various people. No, are they really Jewish? Are they Jewish? Are they not Jewish? Well, let me share a quick story. And I shared this last year in our sukkah with a similar meeting with members of the Lemba community. And that was the first time I met a good friend of mine who's a member of the Lemba community, and I saw him wearing tzitzis and a yarmulke. And I said to him, "Oh, what's your story? Are you converting? Are you not converting?" And he said, "I am." That's what he said. I am. And it reminded me of a verse in the Torah which Moses said to God when God was instructing him to go to save the Jewish people. And he said, "Well, how am I going to tell them about you? Or who is this God that revealed himself to me?" And God responds to Moses, "I am that which I am," or "I will be that which I'll be." I am. And I think that was a stepping back moment for me. It was a very profound moment for me, because who am I to say you are not? You say that you are. And again, without getting into the myriads of debates that are probably going to take place over the next couple of years, in terms of the process of reintroducing the Lemba people into the Jewish community as a whole, in South Africa, in Israel, globally, without going into any of those debates now, because they're bound to happen, they're going to take place. We shouldn't think anything less than the fact that the journey ahead is going to be long, not too long, hopefully, a couple of years. It's going to be tough, it's going to be real and authentic and full of debate, robust debate and discussions, but with the ultimate goal of reconnecting with a lost tribe of the Jewish people. Because the Jewish people, I mean, it's written all over our scripture that they are lost tribes. So somehow there's a process of finding that which is lost. The process is yet to unfold. It's unfolded in other circumstances, and please God, it will unfold here as well. But I think to connect these two messages, these two ideas, to be a Jew means to be a torchbearer, a light, to have moral conscience in a society that is corrupt in any circumstance. To be a Jew means to stand up for what is right. It's not exclusive to Jews, but to be a Jew means you have to do that. You have to follow whatever's going on inside of you emotionally, mentally, and where your gut drives you, you go that with all of your heart and with all of your soul, that you're willing to give up your love for it, that's part of what it means to be a Jew.
An obligation.
It's an obligation. And again, not to exclude anyone else. I think that that's part of what it means to be a human being as well. But some human beings get caught or get stuck by the animal soul inside of all of us. But to be a Jew means to be driven by that light, by that lighthouse, that light that's guiding us. And therefore, I'd like to call upon the Lemba community, the Moshiach, to play a role in Africa, to play a role in South Africa, to shape this country into what it is meant to be. Because South Africa is a lighthouse for the entire world. It is. It has the capacity to be that, to literally lead and shine light from the east to the west, to bring peace. We know it ingrained in ourselves from young. We know what it means to be South African. If you're born here, if you've been here for many generations, it doesn't matter. Black and white doesn't matter here. We're here in South Africa 5, 6, 7. The truth is, even more generations in our family on our one line. We didn't just come from Europe on our one line in our family. We have Afrikaans converts. So we've been here for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations. I don't know. But whatever it is, we are all South African. And we're born into this beautiful reality, and that we can shape it. We can be the masters of our own destiny by just grabbing that opportunity, sharing that opportunity, inspiring the whole nation with this opportunity of democracy. And by being that perfectly in South Africa, we can inspire the rest of the world to do the same. Because then when we turn around to other countries and say, you need to do A, B, and C, they won't have a claim on us. They'll take us seriously. Right? They'll actually listen to what we have to say. The Talmud says from Reish Lakish, Kshot atzmacha v'achar kach kshot acherim. Fix yourself and then fix others. If you don't fix yourself first, there's no point even trying to fix anyone else. It's a meaningless attempt. But if you do fix yourself, if you do make the changes and the effect that needs to take place at home, well, then you can be a light to the entire world. Thank you.
Wow.
Short and to the point.
Question. Are you taking a question?
Yeah.
When you mentioned
L'chaim.
democracy, right? And Jews obviously they want leadership. And you say it's expressed in the Torah, the importance of majority. When Moshe was choosing leaders, did he have say from the people, from the tribes?
I think that's a great question, and I think I'm going to attempt to answer it in one of two ways, because it's not clear. Moshe, we kind of accept, was on another level. We like, our default is that Moses that received the Torah was on another level that we probably can't understand. Yitro, his son-in-law, comes to him, his father-in-law, comes to him and says to him, you're not going to manage leading this nation alone. And then he institutes leaders, managers, different levels of a hierarchy, leaders of tens, of 50s, of hundreds, and of thousands. So in a group of 600,000 men, there were 600 leaders of the thousands. So you had like a hierarchical system. How did he appoint those people? So we could say, all right, he had divine inspiration to know who was who, and he set up the system as such, or he knew who was who based on their reputation. And their reputation comes from other people. So essentially, who chose out of 10 people who would be our leader of 10? The other 9. And who chose out of 50 people who would be the leader of 50? The other 49. They would essentially nominate. The fact that he may have said, okay, you are it. It could be on the one hand it was all divine, because Moses did exist on another level. Or it could have been exactly the way it happens now, which is just human beings interacting in societies as groups, electing their leaders, and on different levels. And it happens naturally. Like democracy is almost a natural thing that we think it's so enforced, in a sense, like it's constitutional and it's law, but it happens just naturally between people. Like in a group of people, you know who's the leader. They look to the leader and he knows who he is. And then on his level, he's got his other peers, and amongst them, they look to their leader. And then amongst them, it's so organic that it almost seems ridiculous to suggest that it didn't happen that way, even with Moses. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Torah always shows us how nations have always had a first to conquer others' life.
How? Other nations?
The first, how other nations
Yes.
always had a first to conquer others' life. More like even wipe the nations of the earth. With all their attempts of converting visions and so on and so on. You make a reference to Oceania,
Sorry?
South Africa. South Africa has got a special place in the world. And you explain also how it can be a source of peace. So whether we're going to look at it from a point of view of history, in terms of what it has above and underground. But then from the Torah perspective and from your own perspective, because you look at the history of this country and how it has it never knew peace. There's constantly up to today attempts to wipe the people of this country and replace them. So, what do you think it is, actually, from both the Torah perspective and from your own perspective? That importance, that role it has, especially when we look towards the coming of the Moshiach and everything. Where do you think its place within the Torah in itself as a source of light? And I tell you, there is something you once said to me some years back, and I only understood it way after what you actually meant. We had a conversation with Simcha about it. And when you were saying that, people are adhering to Israel, and then you said, but I will never adhere.
Not yet.
Because, you know,
Not yet.
They will come back and still find us here. Because what they go and look for, they're living it right here. So what is it you think this country has so much for both two perspectives?
I think the primary thing, which is a Torah principle, is a value for life. You know, the ANC was a terrorist organization for many years. It was on the International Register of Terrorist Organizations, the same list upon which you find Hamas and Hezbollah. But if you look at the terror that the ANC instilled, or, you know, it's nothing on others. And I think that, you know, if we look at historically, we have leaders like Shaka Zulu who was extremely murderous. But I think South Africans today are not murderous. Value life and celebrate life. I think any crime and any murder that is happening, and I'm not saying it isn't, but it's happening as a result of the terrible state that the country is in. You know, criminality, just to quote our leaders in the White House when they went to meet with Trump, it was as a result of poverty, of jobs, of the fact that people don't have jobs and opportunities. But every South African that has an opportunity to work and to earn normally grabs that opportunity and appreciates it and doesn't want to kill others to survive. I think that it does exist, but I think that there is a value for life of all human beings that exists in South Africa. From a Torah perspective, the concept of the South being a source of light is in the temple itself, where in the temple there was the Aron, which held the tablets, the Ten Commandments. There was a table which had showbread, which was a golden table, and then there was also a candelabra, a menorah that would be light. And the table with the bread, which represents wealth, was in the north, situated in the northern side of the temple. The menorah, which was light, was in the south. And there's a phrase that's brought down in our sages, which is harotze lahachkim yadrim. Even when you're praying, it's brought down practically in halacha, is that if you want to become wise, like just tilt a little bit to the south, like just direct yourself there. And I think that the south is it's probably, again, now I'm just speculating, the humility of not being wealthy, not having the wealth, but you value knowledge and you value values, you know, values over possessions, over things. And I think another thing which I've thought about a lot lately is that of the principle of values. You know, we often get mixed up between culture and values, and I think South Africa is made up of multiple cultures, various cultures, but there's a tolerance for the different cultures. Like, we can embrace and accept and learn from each other's cultures. But culture is very shallow in a sense. Values, which are really the meat and potatoes of a group of human beings, are much more important than the culture around it. I think that if you get caught in culture without understanding values, then you've missed the point. And I think that as South Africans, we've united in values and embraced different cultures, because it's not about the culture. It's not about Xhosa culture, Zulu culture, Afrikaans culture, Jewish culture. I think nothing more can epitomize this than a braai, which is officially cross-cultural. It's a South African thing, regardless of where the word comes from. It doesn't matter anymore. We can all agree on what a braai is. You know, it's an opportunity. And take it deeper. What is a braai? Like let's think about this in a sense of a temple. Like when you took your meat, your animal, and you sacrificed it as a korban, as a sacrifice at the temple, right? And you went up with your family to Jerusalem, and you gave some to God, and then you got a little piece that you would take home and you would braai it and share it with your family. Like nothing more is more clear than in the Paschal offering, the Pesach offering. You know, just getting together as families, as people on a Sunday afternoon for a braai. I mean, that's probably the best gift we could give to the world, if they don't already have it. But please God, we should continue to experience that and share it. I don't know if I'll never make Aliyah. I think as long as I have a role to play in South Africa, and I feel I have a role to play, then I'm going to stay here. I think personally that Israel and Jews worldwide have a lot to learn from South Africans and from South African Jews. Um, I, we're very humble about this normally, but the truth is that most Jews from anywhere else in the world that come to visit South Africa have a fantastic time, and especially if they're coming from the northern hemisphere, as soon as they land here, they're just happier.
I've heard it.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard it, and it's not about being humble about it, but it's about stating the facts for what it is. I think we have an appreciation for life and to enjoy it. And that is what God wants of us, is to enjoy life and thank Him for the beautiful life that He's given us. Yeah.
I don't know where to begin, but my predicament is that being a child of the universe and having stayed in so many countries in the world, I think democracy doesn't exist. It's not implemented, let alone in America itself. In Europe, it doesn't exist. And yesterday I was talking to someone, Michael Calendar, you should know him, he's a member of our show. So we're talking about what is difficult for human beings to live in harmony. What makes it so difficult for human beings to exist, together and work together? Because I, as a victim of apartheid, growing up in exile, even up to now, this is the man who taught me how to pull a trigger this way. So all what I'm trying to say is that when you travel, especially with this skin color of ours, be it in Arab countries, be it in Europe. I'll give you an example. The first time I landed in Israel, I never disclosed that I was Jewish. I went there as a student. That was the first. I've been to Israel 7 times, but that was the first time. I was being questioned about what do I want in Israel. So I said to them, I've come to visit. But then they looked at my passport. It was British passport, and I'm born in South Africa. What is transpiring here? I tried to explain myself. I was so tormented. Yeah. So then I said to them, no, I'm a student. I'm studying in England. So I've heard that people talk about Jerusalem at school. They were teaching us. So I never discussed I was Jewish. And I said, I heard that Jerusalem is here on earth. But my friends at school, they say the Jerusalem is in heaven. So I've come to identify that, to verify this. So I think that was a stupid answer to a stupid question. He stamped my passport, off I went. And in France, that one never comes. I'd already seen this apartment story in Trocadero in Paris. And there's this one day, this woman is actually at the airport. I'm supposed to leave, go back to the US. She's telling me, you have a lot of luggage. But other white people and Arabs, Indians, they go in with their luggage. I'm the only one who's told that I've got multiple hand luggage. And this torture goes on and goes on. So got so angry. And then I said to them, no wonder why you kept Sarah apartment for so long. No, that solved my problem. She said, okay, go. So how must I ask myself a lot of questions. Why must I fight in airports and fight in immigration and everywhere? Because of my skin color. All what I'm saying when I go to the book of Judges, when Deborah took that assignment, there was harmony. So why can't we get some Deborahs? How many benches do we have that are going to transcend color and accommodate human beings? Hence, Utatu Sobuke Robert Mangaliso says he's talking about the human race. He's not talking about skin colors. Because we also don't understand why we came out in these colors. It's beyond human comprehension. It is what it is. Hence, we have this saying, we are, therefore I am. So this whole violence, aggressiveness, I don't understand why the world is going through that and why Democrats can't save this. If we wait for Moshiach, I think it's just to find us having transcended all this, chaos and all this anarchy that we're creating as human beings, and the hatred and the greed, and because I think that's what is actually killing the world. But for me, is to discover this very element that is behind the chaos or the anarchy that is affecting the world today. That you can't fathom. Before I conclude, I'll tell you a story. Recently, I was in Senegal. Here, we don't talk at home with the Afrikaners. There's this word that you don't know, like. But I'm in the plane and I forgot my vaccination for yellow fever. It expired. Forgot to see that I don't have a relevant vaccination. So when I get to Senegal, the brothers become so hostile. They want this vaccination now. They're demanding $300, which I don't have cash. I've got this check. I was so abused. Ultimately, there's an African guy there. He's on his way to Mali. I have to stay there for 2 hours because I have to connect to New York. So he said, this is my sister. First time in history. I'm not going to allow her to be so tormented. You are torturing her. These are my own black brothers. And because they are after these US dollars. So it takes out money, but we fight it until it's $150, the penalty. Then he pays that $150. And then in front of them, he gives me $300 and say the banks are going to open very late, so you can have coffee. He hugs me. How often do you meet those kind of individuals that will say, I'll transcend power, I'll transform, I'll see a human being as a human being. That's why my predicament is that we are in this predicament as Africans. You can find it even in shoes where it's difficult. There are some people inside the shoes, side of house of worship, that won't accommodate someone like me. And for me, it's like I don't think democracy is the answer. to this. I think what it is the answer is for each and every individual to introspect themselves and say, I'll look to another human being as a human being, preparing for the way for the arrival of Moshiach, because with this whole chaos we're having, it's a long way to go.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I think your story at the end really summed up the message that I'm trying to give in an element of hope. In that, I can share with my own journey. The person I am today is not the person I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I was just as much a systemic racist as anyone else. And as you said, through a lot of conversations, a lot of introspection, now I'd like to believe I don't see color. But many of us are systemic racists. But the opportunity to transcend exists in environments. I can tell you now that there are very few Israelis in a time of war, when there are hostages, after having 1,200 people murdered on October 7th. There are very few Israelis that are able to transcend and see the Palestinian as a human being.
Right, right.
I actually have no idea how many there are. They probably exist. But when we're in a state of war, of survival mode, we can't see, we can't evolve and grow as individuals. What we were blessed with in 94 and after apartheid was the opportunity of that environment. Many Afrikaners have had the opportunity to introspect. Many may still be racist, but many are not. And the same is true within the black communities. Many are still racist against whites, and many are not. And the same is true in the Jewish community. Many are still racist against blacks. Many are still racist against non-Jews, but many are not. But what we have in South Africa, and not that democracy is the solution, but democracy can at least set the environment, because when you don't have the vote, well, then you want to fight for the vote. Right? But what we have, the freedom that we have in this country, is the opportunity to introspect and do the work and the growth that you're talking about. I think what to stress, what we need to really grab the opportunity as South Africans and within this free democratic space is to be the best country that we can. Because when you say that there's no real democracy, I agree with you. There probably isn't. I mean, until now, even South Africa wasn't a democracy. For the last 30 years, South Africa hasn't been a real democracy because basically everybody, or all of the black population, voted for the ANC because of what the ANC stood for before, not for what it is today. So it hasn't been a democracy. This past election was the first time that South Africa actually stepped into the realm of democracy by having the government of national unity. It was the first time, and even then it wasn't even true because we had such a low turnout at elections. So it's not a true reflection of the nation. But then you had questions like, South Africa has taken Israel to the ICJ, and as South African Jews, we get messages from people abroad, from our brothers abroad, are you safe? Is it okay there? And we laugh and say the truth is it's safer in South Africa than anywhere else in the world for Jews. But the real question of, is the government of South Africa representative of the people, comes to light and is really at play? And the answer is no. And that was proven true when the ANC got less than 50%. Even though it was God introducing the Mkhonto Sizwe party, however God made it happen, it was unveiled to be the truth, that the government did not reflect the people. But it could. And it can. And next year's municipal election is the practice round for our national elections in 2029. It's the opportunity for us to say, can we do better on a municipal level? Can we be proactive as individuals to vote for the people that we want in power, who we believe will give us the service delivery and the things that we need, right, to actually make South Africa great and to be that. Again, to reiterate, I agree with you, there isn't any real democracy, but there could be. I believe South Africa could be.
Yeah, okay. Lastly is the history part. That we need to teach ourselves. It should be an individual assignment that we go back to the history that has been assassinated, the culture that has been assassinated. Because, when I was at Oxford University and tutor was teaching us about Mslopogazi. So then I went to Professor Mazisugnen. A lot of people know him. He was one of the best professors in the US, in South Africa, but teaching at University of Los Angeles. Actually, we just lost Datu Farisani, who was also in exile from Venda. He actually stayed in his house for quite a long time. That took me to go when I was doing political science back to Oxford and to the House of Commons. And when I asked him about who is this Mr. Bogazi, and I'm also pronouncing it like I'm European. And then he sit me down, say, my daughter, sit down. So I say, I want to know about this Mr. Bogazi. And then he tells me, Umhlophekazi. Umhlophekazi is the son of King Shaka. And that's when I went to the House of Commons, I found the hidden true history of us. And this whole thing that King Shaka was a murderer doesn't exist. Yes, there were wars, but not to the extent that his name has been,
Thank you for
tarnished.
correcting me.
Yeah. So it's not the only history. So if we are to move in this journey, we need to tell the right history. We need to correct what we've been taught. That is not true.
Thank you.
That's what took me to Sudan, to Egypt, to all this, to the Gulf states. And you know what I discovered in Salalah, which is 30 kilometers from Muscat. Muscat is in Oman. I discovered that Queen Sheba, she had castles all over the Gulf states. She had castles in Bahrain. She had castles. You can still see the ruins. But why are we not told this history? Why is our history distorted? That's not fair. The journey is not going to be perfect unless and until we all go back and say it's time for the truth. Because I think now we're in this age of revelation. You call it Tenologastuana, and we actually have to know the truth of what happened, what transpired. Why are we in this predicament as a country? So much hatred. What happened? What did we go wrong? What happened?
Thank
Yeah, I
you for
think I'm
sharing
done.
that.
Well, thank you so much. Yours very deep. Yeah. It went to another, but to another level. Yeah. Mine was a question and a comment. Just going back to what we said about Moshe, and I thought, does this mean we need something, an attraction on the mountain to bring everybody together? And what is that thing? Because something pulled people together, right? And is it trauma or is it what? And I'll make an example. 2 years ago, now it's 2 years ago. You remember I was in Israel. I was in a delegation of people who were trying to, after the 7 October. I mean, we're in the middle of just the border of Gaza, and you hear the bombs. Things are happening there, but it was pastors, it was imams, it was rabbis coming together to try and kind of say, can we talk, right? And it went well for 2 days until body bags were brought. And that whole discussion, like nothing happened. And it went back into hatred again all of a sudden. It's like, no, this can't happen. But there was something that was drawn, there was a common denominator. And I'm not so sure. In South Africa, we had a little bit of that with the World Cup, right? I'm just making an example. Philip was here. And something kind of like brought us together. We were one for some time, and then it dissipated. And Philip left and left the building, and we don't know where he never came back. Right. So you said something about the going up, and I was excited about. Could it be when we say the Moshiach is coming? And also, maybe I know there's been debates about in the Kabbalistic world that it's a thought, it's not a physical return, or is it a physical return? Or is it a return, or from whose perspective is it coming for the first time or second time, or we don't know. But what is it that is throwing us together that we can say it's higher than us and it's big? Another example, in the black community, the trauma of apartheid actually brought everybody together. It was actually a beautiful thing, that now even affiliation doesn't matter whether you're with Azapo, you are with UDF, you are with PAC, you're with ANC. When that yellow, what was we yellow Melo came, yeah, it's coming for anybody, right? So you're gonna run, whether you're wearing a yellow or white, or it doesn't matter. So, but there was a common denominator: the community halls, one voice, even if it's different. There was a diversity in the thing. And I saw how 94 lied to us. Somehow that disappeared, and we never had that voice anymore, because there was this illusion that we're free. There was this thing that we are now, freedom has arrived. So I'm just saying that it seems like there is something of a higher power that needs to draw everybody together. That when Moshe went up there, it was a time of disaster. People were running away from a thing, and now where do we go from here? We need guidance, and yet to go up the mountain. I'm just saying, I wanted to know maybe your perspective.
I think you're 100% right in that you need what is a mizbeach? Mizbeach is an altar.
Yeah.
Right. There was an altar in the temple, but what is the point of a mizbeach? Mizbeach, we see throughout Genesis that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, at various points in time, they built an altar. And what did they do? They called out in the name of God. So there's two elements which need to be brought out of a mizbeach. The point is to call out in the name of God, but it's a platform to attract people. And how did the mizbeach do that? The mizbeach achieved that by having food.
Yes. Impeccable timing. Impeccable timing. As you said, the food.
Cooking for supper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Impeccable timing.
As we were, let's have a pause and get the dessert and come back.
Okay, I want to finish this idea. That's the point. Is that the way that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob achieved calling out to people? They didn't just go in the street and preach. They built an mizbeach. They attracted people with food and entertainment, and they welcome them into their home. And I think that you're 100% right that we need an event, a unity event, which brings all cultures, all faiths together under one banner at a location that is profound and on the one hand it could be politically charged, but on the other hand it carries so much forgiveness because it could be politically charged. It shows that we're bigger than this and we transcend all of that and we're just one human being. I think that can happen in South Africa. I mean, when I go to the last cricket game I went to at Wanderers, the truth is it was after the 7th of October. So, you know, you see Muslims in the crowd and you give each other a funny look. Like, I know you're a Muslim, I'm Jewish. But the truth is, though, is that, as you said, sport brings us together. Sport unites us. And sport has replaced war, and which is why South Africa is, you know, I think so successful at sport. And there's a reason why we're so successful. Is because we're always trying to push further, raise the bar, raise the standard. We need to create an event, a music event, which everybody can come together of all faiths to celebrate life and unity.
And then what happens the following week?
Listen.
We do it again. We do it again. We do it every single Sunday. I don't know how big it is, but you create that culture and you look forward to it, and you create, and that consistency. You know, maybe it's once a week, once a month. You're doing it on a small scale, and then you do it once a year on a big scale. But a completely inclusive event, I think, can achieve exactly what you're saying. Because the bigger the event, the more known it becomes, you know, and can be shared.
Okay, just to wrap up before it is a quick one. Okay, there's something very special about this country. That's after dessert. You see, politics, religions. Well, let me just say, I mean, institutions. Institutions, and I'm not blanketing, you know, this thing. You know. They've made their attempts, and yet not successful entirely. So it brings us back to the Torah again. Because one's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a personal thing. So if we could try to have programs that would focus, that can be more focused now, we're dealing with the roots, you know, more focus on consciousness of people before people can adopt a particular ideology or a particular culture. You know, they need to have a foundation of where they are, you know, with God, you know, I mean, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if we could look at programs, and which is what we attempted when we said we'll even go into churches, you know, to go and talk about the Torah. We need to go back to those basics, because I believe that would be something that will be sustainable in terms of people, even when they make their decisions individually, even as they grow up. But they are informed. They are informed from the education of something. In this case, the Torah. Happy dessert.
A follow up to what you're saying, and that would be happy dessert, is that I agree with you about the idea of introduction. What I think, though, is for a common ground is not Torah. A common ground is Noachide, because Noachide fits any religion, right? Because once you start talking Torah, you're talking rules and regulations, and people go turned off and say, there's too much here, I can't do this. I can't do 613 minutes. But I can live Noachide, I can love a human being, I can be peaceful with another human being. That's more of a neutral ground. That's what I was saying.
No, absolutely. So let's not even label it.
Can I end off just to stress both of your points? And I think it's something that's so important, and that is not discussed enough, and that is the Jews' relationship with Christianity. Okay, the concept of idolatry. Okay, let me bring this in a Torah context. When Moses, we spoke about, went up the mountain, and the Jewish people were concerned that he had died. So to speak, there was an image of him going up to heaven, and they feared that he died. So that is why they created an idol, the golden calf. And the commentaries explain, because they related to Moses as some sort of God-man, like an intermediary. And without him, they needed something to replace that. So they built an idol. When Moses died, he was buried, and no one knows where he was buried. Why?
Because they'll go and pray at the
Lest they come and pray at his grave. Right? The concept of an intermediary or an association with God, to pray to God through Moses, or through a man, or through an idol, or definitely an idol, but through some sort of thing that I'm praying to God through, is idolatry for a Jew. It is 100% not allowed for a Jew. Okay? For a non-Jew, to have a relationship with God through an intermediary of sorts is a discussion in the halachic authorities. The Rambam, who predominantly lived, Maimonides, in Arabic areas, around Arabia, and surrounded by Islam, is of the opinion that even that is not allowed for non-Jews. Association is not allowed for non-Jews. But there is an opinion which is brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, that for a non-Jew, association, praying to God through something else, through Jesus, is not idolatry. It is not idolatry for them. And therefore, this whole, I think this relationship that Jews have had with the church, obviously there's been a lot of persecution, and there's been a lot of, successionism and all of that. But in the end of the day, if we just stop here right now, and we say, is Christianity idolatry for a non-Jew? No, it is not. And the truth is that all of Christianity, okay, not all, I cannot say all because I don't know all, but a lot of Christianity is already practicing Noahide laws. They're already doing that.
Yes.
The only question is, if they're not, is if you consider praying to Jesus or to God through Jesus as idolatry. But the same is true even in Islam. There's branches of Islam which, even though it's completely forbidden, to some degree they pray to God through Muhammad. There are some which kind of make Muhammad into similar to what Christianity has made Jesus into, and which is what Judaism wasn't supposed to make Moses into, but branches of Judaism have made their leaders into. What Judaism preaches is a direct relationship with God. Is that you don't need an intermediary. You don't. Each and every human being can have a direct relationship with God. You don't need it. And for a Jew, you're not allowed to have an intermediary. It's not even an option. But for a non-Jew, you can have an intermediary. At least according to some opinions. But that shouldn't be a barrier or some sort of distinction which just separates us from them. I had the privilege of an experience recently, a prayer circle that I participated in with a Muslim, Christians, and myself. And the leader of the prayer circle was praying to Jesus in the name of Jesus. And I was holding everyone's hand and I was participating. In my mind, I was thinking, well, she's praying.
You're probably trending out.
She's praying to God through Jesus. I'm thinking about God directly. Her relationship with God and my relationship with God do not interfere with each other. And I was fine with that. I don't have any halachic issue with that. And I think that that's an important thing to say. That we're all just human beings trying to connect to God.
On that point, ladies and gentlemen, dessert is waiting.
Thank you.
That's it.
Can I